What kind of love letter ends with "I love you so much" after allegedly being forced to have sex with three strangers? In a Manhattan courtroom on June 11, 2025, that's exactly the question jurors faced as Sean Diddy Combs, alleged victim, broke down in tears while reading her own words back to the man she claims both loved and traumatized her. In the fifth week of one of the most explosive celebrity criminal trials in recent memory, the courtroom witnessed a moment that perfectly encapsulated the prosecution's central challenge. How do you prove someone was a victim when their own text messages seem to tell a different story? The woman known only as Jane, the second alleged victim in this high-profile trafficking case, struggled through tears as she read aloud a text message she had sent to Combs in April 2023. Fighting back sobs and pausing to wipe her face with tissues, Jane's voice cracked as she read, "The fact that you are the reason for my child's joy is a feeling inside me that I can't explain. I love you so much as my friend, my lover, my boyfriend, even though you don't like that word." This vulnerable moment revealed the complex psychological maze that prosecutors claim Combs constructed around his alleged victims, a web of genuine affection, financial dependency, and actual coercion that made escape seem impossible, even as the evidence of abuse mounted. The mention of her child added another devastating layer to the testimony, suggesting that Combs had inserted himself into every aspect of Jane's life, including her role as a mother. Defense attorney Teny Geragos had to finish reading the message as Jane composed herself on the witness stand. But this emotional breakdown would be just the beginning of a day filled with shocking revelations about luxury vacations, birthday trauma, and a relationship that blurred every line between love and exploitation. What emerged from Jane's testimony was perhaps the most chilling insight into the mindset of someone trapped in what prosecutors allege was a criminal enterprise disguised as romance. When pressed by the defense about her apparent willingness to participate in these encounters, Jane delivered one of the day's most powerful statements. My circumstances were my options in this relationship. If I see him, there is a request for a tell night, so I'm just adapting to my circumstances. I'm adapting to my environment." This statement cut to the heart of the prosecution's case, that Jane wasn't making free choices, but rather survived a normal relationship bound in a system where notaries had been systematically eroded. She continued with words that revealed the depth of her emotional starvation. "Any type of affection at this point in my life that I received from Sean, I received with open arms." The defense seized on these admissions, arguing they showed Jane's agency in the relationship. But prosecutors would likely argue they revealed something far more sinister. A woman so psychologically manipulated that she had convinced herself that accepting actual degradation was simply the price of love. The testimony then shifted to a 23 trip to Turks and Caicos, a luxury vacation that would cost Combs approximately $55,000. Jane revealed that she had sent a text message to an entertainer named Sly, inviting him on the trip. "Would you be available to come to Turks by any chance? You would need a passport, and I think a vaccination card. Let me know what you think." However, Jane's testimony took a significant turn when she claimed, "I believe my lover wanted me to send a message to Sly to invite him on the trip." This statement suggested that what appeared to be Jane's initiative was actually manipulation by Combs. The defense seized on this, attempting to show Jane's active participation in arranging these encounters. This trip held particular significance because Jane had previously testified that she told Combs, "Just want the trip," on the desperate plea for intimacy without the actual exploitation that had become routine. Yet even this supposed make-up vacation, designed to reconnect them after Combs had been caught lying about taking another woman to Turks and Caicos for her birthday, ultimately featured another tell night with an entertainer. The pattern was becoming clear. No matter how much money Combs spent, no matter how romantic the setting, every encounter seemed to circle back to his actual demands involving other men. One of the most disturbing aspects of today's testimony centered around Jane's birthday celebration in February 2023. Jane described receiving a Van Cleef necklace and bracelet from Combs, expensive jewelry that should have marked a romantic gesture. Instead, Jane testified that immediately after receiving these gifts, she took an ecstasy pill and was waiting for an entertainer to join them. The birthday celebration, which Combs had spent between $30,000 to $15,000 organizing, culminated in what Jane described as being made to have sex with three guys. Despite this alleged trauma, text messages shown to the jury revealed Jane later writing to Combs, "I loved and appreciated every detail you put into my birthday. When pressed by the defense about this apparent contradiction, Jane maintained that her gratitude was directed solely at the gifts and private time with Combs, not the actual encounters with multiple men. The defense lawyer suggested that Jane took a photo because she was so excited about the gifts, but Jane's response revealed the tragic reality of her situation. She was grateful for any moment of genuine affection in a relationship that had become defined by actual exploitation. This birthday trauma was particularly significant because it came immediately before Combs took another woman, someone named Kalisha, whose birthday was around the same time, on what Jane described as a beautiful vacation to Turks and Caicos. Jane testified she was hurt not just by being made to have sex with 3 guys, but by seeing Combs with another woman on a romantic trip while she was alone and recovering from having to sleep with 3 men that I didn't want to sleep with. Jane's testimony painted a relationship confined to hotel rooms, where every encounter seemed to come with the expectation of hotel nights. Combs' term for actual encounters involving male prostitutes. When Jane texted Combs asking if the Nobi restaurant in their Miami hotel was their only dinner option for her birthday, she was desperately trying to escape this pattern. "I'm asking if he could please romance me outside of hotel rooms," Jane testified, her voice conveying the longing for a normal romantic relationship. She had suggested upscale restaurants like Pappy Steak and Carbone, hoping Combs would read between the lines and take her somewhere special. Instead, they remained at the hotel, and the evening ended with another hotel night. The defense attorney pressed Jane about her knowledge of these upscale restaurants, to which Jane responded with exasperation. "I just wanted to recommend another option so I could be romanced on my birthday." This exchange highlighted the prosecution's argument that Jane was constantly trying to salvage normalcy from a relationship that had been fundamentally corrupted by Combs' actual demands. Perhaps one of the most telling moments in Jane's testimony came when she described a text exchange from June 19, 2022. When Combs suggested they should have a tell night, Jane responded, "Not really in the mood for that part, don't want to make you mad." This message revealed the impossible position Jane found herself in. She didn't want to participate, but she was more afraid of angering Combs than she was of enduring another traumatic encounter. Combs' response of "all good," and his suggestion of a role-play scenario instead showed how he had created an environment where Jane felt she had to constantly negotiate her own boundaries. When Jane declined the hotel night, they instead had what she described as a movie night, watching past hotel night footage and pornography, suggesting that even when she managed to avoid direct participation, she was still forced to engage with the actual exploitation that defined their relationship. The court heard extensive testimony about how these hotel nights became a tool of manipulation in their relationship. Jane revealed that she once threatened to withhold these encounters to force Combs to leave a vacation with another woman early. "If you don't come here now, we're not gonna do anything that you want to do," she had told him. This was what Jane called pulling the hotel night card, using Combs' actual desires as leverage in their toxic dynamic. When defense attorney Geragos asked if she had told Combs he wouldn't have a Valentine's Day party with him, Jane confirmed, "Wes, that was the first time I pulled that card. The hotel night card." Geragos pressed, "Wes," Jane responded. The defense highlighted this as evidence of Jane's agency and control, while prosecutors would likely argue it showed the psychological manipulation Jane endured. She had been so conditioned to this system that she learned to use it as her only form of power in the relationship. Throughout the day, the jury was presented with a series of text messages that revealed the complex emotional landscape of Jane's relationship with Combs. After a 3-day hotel night around New Year's 2022 involving 3 men, which Jane described as the longest such encounter she could remember, she discovered Combs had immediately taken another woman named Gina on vacation. Her anguish was captured in a message to Combs. "You have me feeling so taken advantage of and regretting everything." Yet in other messages, Jane expressed deep love. "My love for you is unconditional and for life," she wrote after another hotel night encounter. When Jane read aloud messages from July 22, the day after hotel night, she confirmed texting Combs, "Last night was amazing." She then sent him a long message expressing her love and appreciation. But when pressed by the defense, Jane insisted that the feelings she was expressing were directed only at Combs, and not the other men involved. These contradictory messages form the heart of the defense strategy, showing that Jane was not merely a victim, but someone who actively participated in and sometimes initiated these encounters. The prosecution would likely argue these messages showed the classic pattern of trauma bonding, where victims express gratitude to their abusers as a survival mechanism. In one of the more disturbing revelations, Jane testified that she would buy matching shorts for Combs and the male escorts to wear during hotel nights, as well as erectile dysfunction pills for the men to use. This testimony suggested that Jane had become so integrated into the system of her own exploitation that she was actively facilitating it. Jane also revealed that she, Combs, and a regular escort named Paul had compared themselves to basketball legends, with Jane calling them the trifecta. Jane was Kobe Bryant, Paul was Shaquille O'Neal, and Combs was Michael Jordan. This bizarre comparison showed how the participants had developed a twisted sense of camaraderie around what prosecutors allege was systematic sexual exploitation. Jane confirmed that she had planned a tell night for Valentine's Day 2022 after Combs left a vacation with another woman early at her demand. She decorated the hotel room with rose petals and planned to have 2 entertainers in the room at once, something she acknowledged was her idea and her first time arranging such an encounter. This testimony was particularly damaging to Jane's credibility as a pure victim, as it showed her taking initiative in planning these encounters. However, the context was crucial. This Valentine's Day setup came after Jane had successfully manipulated Combs into leaving his vacation with another woman by threatening to withhold tell nights. It suggested a woman who had learned to navigate a toxic system by occasionally taking control of it. The tension between Jane and the defense reached a boiling point during discussions about the material benefits Jane received from her relationship with Combs. When defense attorney Geragos asked about luxury items, Jane's responses revealed her anger and pain. When asked if she knew what a Bottega bag was, Jane fired back, "I'm sure you have one." When pressed about the price of such bags, Jane snapped, "How much does my body cost?" And when asked if Combs had given her a Chanel bag, Jane delivered perhaps the most powerful line of her testimony. "No, I only got trauma." These exchanges showed a woman who had reached her breaking point with suggestions that she had somehow profited from her alleged victimization. Judge Aaron Subramanian had to remind Jane to answer the questions, but her emotional responses provided some of the trial's most memorable moments. In one of the most emotionally charged moments of the day, Jane confirmed that she had helped cure Combs in June 2023 after he underwent surgery. During this period, she testified, there were no hotel nights. A brief respite that seemed to offer a glimpse of what their relationship might have been without the sexual exploitation. However, that respite was short-lived. Jane confirmed they had a hotel night in early July 2023 just after Combs recovered. Defense attorney Teny Geragos then read aloud a text message Jane had sent the day after this encounter, expressing how much she loved Combs and enjoyed spending time with him. As Geragos read the loving words Jane had written after what she claims was another traumatic sexual encounter, Jane was seen dabbing her eyes with tissues, overcome with emotion. The moment was so intense that Geragos asked the judge if the lawyers could approach the bench, suggesting the testimony had reached a critical juncture that required private discussion. This latest emotional breakdown perfectly illustrated the prosecution's challenge. How do you convince a jury that someone was a victim when they consistently expressed love and gratitude to their alleged abuser, even after the most degrading experiences? The court also heard testimony about Combs' attempts to reconcile with Jane after she discovered his deception about the Turks and Caicos trip with another woman. On March 2023, Combs texted Jane an apology. "I didn't know I was going to lose one of my closest friends over a stupid lie." When Combs said he missed Jane and wanted to see her, Jane responded, "I'm open as friends." But when he offered to get a hotel for her, and she balked, he responded, "You said friends." This exchange showed how even Jane's attempts to establish boundaries were immediately challenged by Combs, who seemed unable to conceive of a relationship with her that didn't involve his sexual demands. Adding to the day's tensions, a significant issue emerged regarding juror per 6. Prosecutor Maureen Cummey revealed that the government was seeking to dismiss this juror due to what she called lack of candor with the court. Defense attorney Alexandra Shapiro immediately pushed back, accusing prosecutors of making thinly veiled effort to dismiss a black juror. The juror in question was described as a man from the Bronx who, during jury selection, said he was familiar with the basic allegations, but that his knowledge wouldn't prevent him from being fair. Judge Aaron Subramanian announced he would handle this matter in writing, adding another layer of complexity to an already highly charged trial. As the cross-examination continued, Jane became increasingly defensive, particularly when questioned about the benefits she received from her relationship with Combs. Her tone grew sharper, and she was seen stroking her hair nervously as she repeatedly insisted that her expressions of love in text messages referred only to Combs, not to the other men involved in their encounters. The defense's strategy of highlighting Jane's apparent complicity clearly struck a nerve, as she struggled to explain away the affectionate messages she had sent after alleged traumatic experiences. Meanwhile, the courtroom remained packed with Combs' family members throughout the proceedings. His mother, sister, and 3 sons were present, creating a stark contrast between the intimate family support and the graphic testimony being presented. During a bathroom break, Combs was seen greeting people in the courtroom and asking his mother if she had eaten, showing the surreal normalcy that punctuated these extraordinary proceedings. Today's testimony is part of the government's larger case alleging that Combs operated a criminal enterprise designed to fulfill his sexual desires through coercion and trafficking. The prosecution argues that what the defense portrays as consensual adult relationships were actually carefully orchestrated systems of abuse and control. Prosecutors have also referenced Christina Coram, Combs' former chief of staff known as KK, Ascan agent and co-conspirator, who allegedly helped transport drugs across state lines, monitored ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura's whereabouts, and helped secure hotel surveillance footage of Combs physically assaulting Ventura. While Coram hasn't testified and denies all wrongdoing, her alleged role shows the breadth of the enterprise prosecutors claim Combs operated. Jane's testimony reveals a woman caught in what experts would recognize as a classic pattern of psychological abuse, moments of genuine affection and luxury mixed with degradation and coercion, creating a trauma bond that kept her connected to her alleged abuser. The 5,000 vacations, the 20,000 business investment, the Van Cleef jewelry, all of it came with strings attached that bound Jane more tightly to a system of exploitation. One of the most intriguing aspects of Jane's testimony was her insight into what she believed motivated Combs' behavior. Under cross-examination, Jane testified that she believed Combs was curious about bisexuality but wanted to keep that side of him at a distance. Asking his girlfriends to have sex with other men while he watched and recorded was, according to Jane, his way of participating while remaining too scared to do the act himself. I was trying to figure out the relationship and I came upon the word cuckold. A man turned on by watching his woman having sex with another man. Jane testified, I just wanted to know what was driving him. This psychological analysis provided the jury with Jane's attempt to understand the man she claims both loved and feared, while also giving the defense ammunition to argue that these were consensual sexual practices between adults, not criminal exploitation. As Jane's testimony is expected to conclude by week's end, the trial moves closer to its conclusion, with Combs facing potentially decades in prison on charges including trafficking and racketeering conspiracy. Every piece of testimony carries enormous weight. The jury has heard 5 days of testimony that paints a picture of a relationship so psychologically complex that it challenges traditional notions of victimhood and consent. Jane's testimony has provided glimpses of genuine love alongside allegations of systematic abuse, moments of agency alongside claims of coercion, and expressions of gratitude alongside accusations of trauma. Jane's 5 days on the witness stand have provided the jury with an intimate look into what prosecutors allege was a systematic pattern of sexual exploitation disguised as romantic relationships, testimony that will likely prove crucial in determining Sean Diddy Combs' fate. The defense has successfully highlighted contradictions in Jane's account and shown her active participation in many of the encounters she now claims were traumatic. But the prosecution's case rests on a more sophisticated understanding of abuse, a one that recognizes that victims often express love for their abusers, that survival sometimes requires participation in one's own exploitation, and that trauma bonds can be more powerful than fear in keeping victims connected to their abusers. As the courtroom drama continues, one thing remains clear: this trial will ultimately force the jury to grapple with fundamental questions about consent, coercion, and the complex psychology of abusive relationships in ways that could reshape how such cases are understood and prosecuted.